The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's emergency room cast their harsh, unforgiving glare across Maya Rodriguez's face as she checked her phone for the third time in 10 minutes. 3:47 a.m. Her shift wouldn't end for another 4 hours, but the adrenaline from the last trauma had faded, leaving her with that familiar hollow exhaustion that came from too many double shifts and too little sleep. The notification sound cut through the ambient hospital noise, monitors beeping, distant conversations, the perpetual hum of machinery keeping people alive. Carmen's name flashed across her screen, accompanied by a wall of text that made Maya's stomach clench before she even read the first word. "Maya! OMG emergency! Preston's family is expecting me to contribute $75K to the wedding, and I'm short. You have to help me. I know you've been saving money, and this is literally my dream wedding. I can't ask Preston because his trust fund manager is being weird about large withdrawals right now. I need this from you. Family helps family, right? The deposit is due tomorrow, or we lose the venue. Please don't let me down. I promise I'll pay you back after the honeymoon when everything settles. XOXO." Maya stared at the message, her photographic memory instantly cataloguing it alongside hundreds of others from Carmen over the past 5 years. Always urgent, always dramatic, always someone else's responsibility to fix whatever mess Carmen had created this time. She scrolled up through their message history, her trained eye picking out the patterns that most people would miss. 3 months ago, "Can you cover Mom's insulin? I'm between sponsorship deals." 6 months ago, "The Ashfords invited me to Martha's Vineyard, but I need a new wardrobe. Can you float me $5,000? Last year, "Dad's physical therapy bills are overwhelming me. I know you make more than me. Can you take over?" Each request painted the same picture, Carmen positioning herself as the victim while Maya shouldered the financial burden. But this time was different. $75,000 different. Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she heard her grandmother's voice echo in her memory. "Mija, some people mistake kindness for weakness, but the smart ones, they wait, they watch, and when the time comes, they remember everything." Instead of responding, Maya opened the voice recording app she'd been using for the past 3 years. Originally, she'd started recording family conversations to protect herself after Carmen had accused her of making up a previous argument about money. Now those hundreds of hours of audio lived in a secure cloud folder, meticulously organized by date and topic. The ER doors burst open, interrupting her thoughts. A woman stumbled in, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead, supported by a man in an expensive suit who reeked of alcohol and entitlement. "Where the hell is everyone?" the man shouted, his voice echoing through the waiting area. "This is an emergency. Do you people understand what that means?" Maya recognized the type immediately, someone who believed their wealth exempted them from basic human decency. She approached calmly, her years of medical training kicking in as she assessed the woman's condition. "Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. This is a hospital," Maya said quietly, her tone professional but firm. "Lower my voice?" The man's face flushed red. "Do you know who I am? I could buy this entire hospital. My girlfriend needs immediate attention, not some lecture from a nurse." Maya made note of his statement. Not wife, girlfriend. The woman wore a massive diamond ring that caught the fluorescent light, but her body language suggested something more complex than a loving relationship. The way she flinched when he raised his voice, the careful distance she maintained despite her injury. "Of course, sir. Let me get her checked in right away," Maya replied, her voice never changing pitch. She'd learned long ago that the loudest people in the room were often hiding the deepest secrets. As she worked, Maya's phone buzzed again. Carmen, naturally. "Maya, did you see my message? This is urgent." The venue coordinator is literally breathing down my neck. "I told Preston's family that my sister is a successful doctor who was covering part of the wedding costs. You can't make me look bad in front of them. They already think I'm beneath their social status. If they find out I can't even get family support, it will ruin everything. Please just wire the money tonight. I'll owe you forever." Maya screenshot the message, adding it to a folder labeled Financial Requests, Evidence. She noticed Carmen's subtle manipulation techniques, the false urgency, the guilt trip, the implication that Maya was somehow obligated to maintain Carmen's lies. But it was the detail about lying to Preston's family that caught her attention. If Carmen had already promised money she didn't have, that meant she'd potentially committed fraud. Maya made a mental note to research the legal implications later. The blood pressure cuff tightened around the injured woman's arm as Maya worked silently, her mind cataloguing every detail of the interaction she'd just witnessed. The man, presumably Preston Ashford III, based on the platinum American Express card he'd thrown on the registration desk, had retreated to the corner, speaking in hushed, angry tones on his phone. "Please don't tell him about the pregnancy," the woman whispered suddenly, so quietly Maya almost missed it. Maya's hands never paused in their work, but her mind raced. Pregnancy. A secret pregnancy. She glanced at the woman's left hand again. Engagement ring, not wedding ring. The pieces began falling into place. "Your information stays between us," Maya assured her, meaning it. HIPAA laws aside, she recognized the look in the woman's eyes. Fear. The same expression she'd seen on abuse victims throughout her career. Her phone buzzed a third time. This message was longer, more desperate. "Maya, I'm literally crying right now. Do you know how hard it's been to get where I am? Preston's mother hates me already. She thinks I'm some gold digger from the Bronx who doesn't belong in their world. This wedding is my chance to prove I'm worthy of their family. I've worked so hard to reinvent myself, to become someone they can respect. If I can't deliver on this one thing, everything I've built will collapse. Please don't let them be right about me. Please don't let me fail. The money will come back to you, I promise, but I need you to trust me this one time." Maya read the message twice, her analytical mind dissecting each word. Carmen wasn't asking for help, she was demanding it. The guilt trip was expertly crafted, designed to make Maya feel responsible for Carmen's success or failure. But more interesting was what Carmen had revealed without realizing it. She'd been lying about her background to Preston's family. This wasn't just about wedding money. This was about Carmen's entire fabricated identity. Maya opened a new document on her phone and began typing notes. If Carmen was defrauding Preston's family about her background, and if she was promising money she didn't have, how deep did this deception go? The emergency room had quieted again, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts and the steady hum of medical equipment. She looked around at her domain, the place where she'd spent the last 8 years of her life, working 60-hour weeks to support a family that took her sacrifices for granted. Carmen's Instagram posts flashed through her mind. Photos from exclusive restaurants, designer handbags, weekend trips to the Hamptons. All funded, Maya now realized, by the money Carmen should have been contributing to their parents' care. While Maya worked double shifts and ate vending machine dinners, Carmen had been playing dress-up in the world of Connecticut old money. Maya's phone rang. Carmen, of course. "Thank God you're awake." Carmen's voice was breathless, dramatic. "Did you get my messages? Maya, I'm literally having a panic attack. The venue coordinator called me at midnight, saying they need confirmation of payment by 6 a.m., or they're giving our slot to another couple. Can you imagine? After all the planning, all the deposits we've already paid." "We?" Maya interrupted quietly. "What? You said deposits we've already paid. Who is we?" Carmen's pause lasted exactly 3 seconds, long enough for Maya's trained mind to recognize the hesitation as calculated rather than genuine. "Maya, don't be ridiculous. You know what I meant. Preston and I have been planning this for months. His family has very specific expectations about the kind of wedding their son deserves. This isn't just about me. This is about family honor, tradition, maintaining the Ashford legacy." Maya closed her eyes, recognizing the script. Carmen had been practicing this speech, probably in front of a mirror. The working-class girl from the Bronx had learned to speak like old money, to adopt their values and priorities as her own. "Carmen," Maya said slowly, "how exactly did you explain to the Ashfords that you need $75,000 from your sister?" Another pause, longer this time. I told them you're a doctor, which you basically are. You have medical training, you work in a hospital. I may have implied that you're, financially successful, which you are. You make good money, Maya. You just choose to live like a pauper for some reason. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. What exactly did you tell them about me? Nothing bad. I said you're a successful physician who's been investing in real estate. I mentioned that you've been supporting the family for years, which shows how generous and family-oriented you are. They love that. They're big on family loyalty. Maya's mouth went dry. Carmen hadn't just asked for money. She'd built an entire mythology around Maya's supposed wealth and success. She'd turned Maya into a fictional character in her elaborate deception. "Carmen, I'm a night shift ER nurse with $80,000 in student loan debt. But you could be so much more if you just tried. Maya, you're brilliant, but you have no ambition. You're content to stay in that crappy apartment, working the graveyard shift, taking care of everyone else, while your own life passes you by. This is your chance to be part of something bigger. Preston's family has connections everywhere. Medical boards, hospital systems, investment opportunities. They could open doors for you that you can't even imagine." Maya listened to her sister's voice, hearing echoes of every conversation they'd ever had about money, success, and family obligation. Carmen had always possessed an almost supernatural ability to twist situations until Maya appeared selfish for not sacrificing more. But this time, Maya heard something else in Carmen's voice. Desperation, fear. The brittle edge of someone whose carefully constructed world was beginning to crack. "I need to think about it," Maya said finally. "Think about it?" Carmen's voice rose to a near shriek. "Maya, there's no time to think. I need an answer right now. The venue. I'll call you tomorrow." Maya ended the call and immediately opened her recording app, dictating notes while the conversation was fresh in her memory. Carmen's lies about Maya's profession and financial status, the pressure tactics, the manipulation disguised as family loyalty. Most importantly, the revelation that Carmen had been misrepresenting herself to the Ashford family for months. Maya looked around the emergency room again, at the flickering fluorescent lights, the scuffed linoleum floors, the coffee-stained scrubs she'd worn for 14 hours straight. This was her real life. Not Carmen's Instagram fantasy, but the grinding reality of someone who'd chosen service over status. Her phone buzzed with a final message. "Maya, I know you're upset, but please don't let your pride destroy my happiness. This is the most important day of my life. Don't make me choose between my family and my future. I love you, but I won't let you sabotage everything I've worked for. Transfer the money by 6 a.m., or I'll know where we stand as sisters." Maya stared at the message, recognizing it for what it was, an ultimatum disguised as emotional manipulation. Carmen wasn't asking for help anymore. She was demanding compliance. But Carmen had made one critical error. She'd assumed Maya was still the same pushover who'd been enabling her behavior for years. Carmen had no idea that Maya had been documenting every conversation, every request, every lie. Maya opened her voice memo app one final time that night. Case file, Carmen Rodriguez fraud investigation, day 1. Subject has requested $75,000 under false pretenses, claiming family emergency while simultaneously misrepresenting my professional and financial status to third parties. Subject appears to be engaged in systematic deception regarding her own background and resources, investigation parameters, financial fraud, identity misrepresentation, potential embezzlement. Evidence collection begins immediately. Maya saved the recording and closed her phone. In 6 hours, Carmen would expect her answer. But Carmen had no idea that Maya had already decided, not just about the money, but about everything. The game had changed. Carmen had escalated from family manipulation to actual fraud, and Maya Rodriguez had a photographic memory for every single lie her sister had ever told. Maya's apartment at 5:47 a.m. was a study in controlled chaos. Empty coffee cups lined the kitchen counter like soldiers, medical journals stacked beside unpaid bills, and her laptop hummed quietly on the cramped dining table she'd converted into a makeshift office. The smell of instant coffee mixed with the antiseptic scent that seemed permanently embedded in her scrubs, creating an oddly comforting atmosphere of productive exhaustion. She'd been home from her shift for exactly 23 minutes, but sleep was the furthest thing from her mind. Carmen's 6 a.m. deadline loomed, but Maya had spent the past hour doing something far more important than deciding whether to wire money she couldn't afford. She was building a case. The laptop screen glowed with multiple browser tabs: New York State fraud statutes, wedding venue contracts, property records for Rosecliff Manor, and most intriguingly, financial disclosures required for trust fund distributions. Maya's photographic memory wasn't just useful for remembering drug dosages and patient symptoms. It had also retained every casual detail Carmen had dropped about Preston's family wealth over the past 2 years. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Mija, Carmen told me about the wedding money. You know how important this is to her. Maybe you could take out a loan. She's finally found happiness with a good family." Maya stared at the message, feeling a familiar knot of frustration in her chest. Even their mother had been recruited into Carmen's campaign. She screenshot the text and added it to her growing evidence folder, then typed back, "Mum, did Carmen mention she's been lying to Preston's family about her background, or that she told them I'm a wealthy doctor?" The response came quickly. Carmen explained that. She just wants to fit in with them. You know how hard it's been for her to feel accepted. Maya closed her eyes, recognizing the family dynamic that had enabled Carmen's behavior for years. Carmen wasn't just manipulating Maya, she was manipulating their entire family system, positioning herself as the victim who deserved their sacrifice and support. She opened a new document and began typing. Case notes, Rodriguez family financial manipulation. Subject, Carmen Rodriguez, age 28. Pattern, duration, approximately 5 years. Estimated financial impact, $127,000 in documented requests. Maya pulled up her banking records, meticulously cataloging every transfer she'd made to Carmen over the years. The numbers painted a devastating picture: $3,000 for emergency car repairs that turned out to be cosmetic modifications, $5,000 for Mum's medical bills during a month when Maya had already paid those bills directly, $8,000 for Dad's physical therapy that Maya later discovered Carmen had spent on a weekend in Miami with Preston. But it wasn't just the money, it was the systematic lying. Maya opened her voice recording archive. 3 years of conversations stored in meticulously labeled folders. She'd started recording family calls after Carmen had accused her of misremembering an argument about money, claiming Maya had promised financial support for something she'd never agreed to. Initially, it had been self-protection. Now, it was evidence. She clicked on a file from 8 months ago. Carmen Call 2024-04-15 Trust Fund. MP3. Carmen's voice filled the apartment, bright and conspiratorial. "Maya, you won't believe this. Preston's family has this massive trust fund, like generational wealth that just keeps growing. His dad controls the distributions, but Preston gets full access when he turns 35. That's only 2 years away. Can you imagine? I'm literally going to marry into more money than we ever dreamed of." Maya's own voice responded, "That's a lot of responsibility, Carmen. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of lifestyle?" "Ready? Maya, I was born for this. I've been studying these people for months. I know which charities they support, which country clubs they belong to, even how they like their cocktails mixed. I'm becoming the perfect Ashford wife. What about your own background, your own family?" A pause. Then Carmen's voice, harder. "What about it?" "Maya, our family is Fine, but it's not Ashford fine. These people have standards. They have expectations. I can't show up talking about Dad's construction accidents and Mom's diabetes. That's not the story they want to hear. So what story are you telling them? The truth, just polished. I tell them about my successful sister, the doctor who's been investing in real estate. I tell them about our family's strong work ethic and values. I don't lie, Maya. I just emphasize the parts that matter to them. Maya paused the recording, her jaw clenched. Even 8 months ago, Carmen had been constructing the lie that would lead to this moment, the fabricated story about Maya's success, the carefully omitted details about their family's actual financial struggles. She opened another file. Carmen, call 2024, 07 to 22 to Sun, weddingplanning.mp3. The venue coordinator wants to discuss payment schedules. Carmen's voice was stressed, urgent. Preston's mom is handling most of the arrangements, but she expects each family to contribute equally. I told her our family was covering $75,000. Carmen, we don't have $75,000, but you have savings, right? And you could get a loan. Maya, this is important. If I can't deliver on this, Preston's mother will know I was lying about our financial situation. She already suspects I'm not suitable for their family. Maybe you should tell Preston the truth about— No! Carmen's voice was sharp, panicked. Maya, you don't understand. These people don't marry down. If Preston knew the truth about our background, about Dad's disability, about Mom's medical bills, he'd question everything. If he loves you, love isn't enough in their world, Maya. Security is everything. Status is everything. I need Preston to see me as an equal, not a charity case. Maya stopped the recording and opened her laptop camera, starting a new video log. Evidence log, entry number 47. The subject has been engaged in systematic identity fraud for a minimum of 8 months, possibly longer. She has misrepresented her family's financial status, her own educational background, and her sister's profession to her fiancé's family. The requested $75,000 is not for wedding expenses. It's to maintain a fraudulent identity that, if exposed, would constitute grounds for criminal investigation. She paused, considering her next words carefully. The subject appears unaware that her communications have been documented. She has escalated from family manipulation to actual fraud, involving third parties and potentially criminal misrepresentation. Recommend immediate evidence compilation and consultation with law enforcement contacts. Maya saved the video and opened her contacts, scrolling to a name she hadn't called in over a year. Luis Morales. Luis had been her EMT partner for 3 years before he'd moved to detective work in financial crimes. They'd stayed in touch sporadically, mostly through professional courtesy and the kind of deep friendship that forms between people who've seen each other at their worst. More importantly, Luis owed her his life. 2 years ago, during a domestic violence call in Washington Heights, an armed suspect had cornered Luis in a stairwell. Maya had been first on scene, using her medical training to distract the gunman long enough for backup to arrive. Luis had taken a bullet to the shoulder, but Maya's quick thinking had prevented a fatality. She dialed his number. Maya? Jesus, what time is it? Are you okay? Luis, I need to ask you about financial fraud laws, specifically regarding trust funds and identity misrepresentation. A pause. Maya, it's 6 in the morning. Are you in some kind of trouble? Not me, my sister, and potentially her fiancé's family. Maya took a breath. How much evidence would you need to investigate someone for defrauding a wealthy family through false identity claims? Maya, Luis's voice was suddenly alert, professional. What kind of evidence are we talking about? Recorded conversations spanning 3 years. Financial records showing systematic misrepresentation, documentation of false claims about educational background, professional status, and family wealth. Shit. Maya, this sounds serious. Can you meet me somewhere? I think we need to talk in person. Hey everyone, I know this story is getting intense, and I can see some of you are probably feeling that familiar anger when someone takes advantage of family loyalty. I'm curious, what caught your attention the most so far? Was it Carmen's manipulation tactics or Maya's methodical approach to documenting everything? Drop a comment and let me know what's making you the most indignant about this situation. Trust me, we're just getting started. An hour later, Maya sat across from Luis in a 24-hour diner near the precinct, her laptop open between plates of untouched eggs and coffee that had gone cold. Luis looked older than she remembered. More grey in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes from too many late nights investigating financial crimes. "Show me what you've got," Luis said, sliding a small digital recorder across the table. "But first, I need to know. Are you looking for advice or are you looking to press charges?" Maya considered the question, thinking about Carmen's ultimatum text, about years of manipulation disguised as family loyalty, about the elaborate fraud Carmen had constructed around Maya's supposed wealth. "I'm looking for justice," she said finally. "My sister has been systematically lying to everyone. Our family, her fiancé's family, probably her fiancé himself. She's requested $75,000 based on fraudulent claims, and she's told her fiancé's family that I'm a successful doctor with real estate investments." Luis whistled low. "Maya, if she's defrauding a wealthy family, we're not talking about small-time scams. Families like the Ashfords, they have resources, lawyers, private investigators. If they discover they've been lied to, they won't just cut ties quietly." Good," Maya said, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. "Luis, she's been bleeding our family dry for years. While I work 60-hour weeks and live in a studio apartment, she's been playing dress-up in penthouses and posting Instagram photos from Martha's Vineyard. She's convinced our parents that she deserves financial support because she's building a better life for the family." Maya opened her laptop and showed Luis the spreadsheet she'd been building. $127,000. That's what she's cost our family over the past 5 years. Money that should have gone to Dad's medical care, Mom's insulin, my student loans. Luis studied the screen, his detective instincts engaged. "Maya, this level of documentation. How long have you been planning this?" "I haven't been planning anything. I've been protecting myself. Carmen has a history of gaslighting, claiming conversations never happened, denying promises she made, rewriting history to make herself the victim. I started recording everything as evidence in case she ever tried to manipulate family members against me. And now..." Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking about Carmen's deadline, about the ultimatum disguised as sisterly love, about the threat to cut Maya off if she didn't comply with financial demands. Now she's escalated beyond family manipulation. She's committing actual fraud against innocent people. Preston and his family don't deserve to be lied to, regardless of how I feel about their wealth and privilege. Luis leaned back, studying Maya's face. "You realize what you're asking me to help you with. If we investigate this, and if the evidence supports fraud charges, your sister could go to prison. Her life, as she's constructed, it would be over. Her life, as she's constructed it, is built on lies, Luis. It was always going to collapse eventually. I'm just accelerating the timeline." Luis was quiet for several minutes, scrolling through Maya's evidence files. Finally, he looked up. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Are you doing this for justice, or are you doing this for revenge?" Maya considered the question, thinking about all the late nights she'd worked while Carmen posted photos from expensive restaurants. All the family gatherings where Carmen had been praised for her success, while Maya's sacrifices went unnoticed. All the times Carmen had made Maya feel selfish for questioning financial requests that left Maya eating ramen noodles for weeks. "Both," Maya said finally, "and I'm okay with that." Luis smiled grimly. "Good, because the best revenge is often just exposing the truth." He closed his notebook and slid the digital recorder back across the table. "Maya, I'm going to give you some advice as a friend. And then I'm going to give you some information as a detective. Maya nodded. As a friend, be absolutely certain this is what you want. Once we start this process, there's no going back. Your family relationships will never be the same. They're already not the same, Luis. Carmen made sure of that when she decided I was her personal ATM. Fair enough. As a detective, if your sister has been lying to the Ashford family about her background, and if she's been misrepresenting financial assets to secure wedding funding, we're looking at potential wire fraud, identity fraud, and conspiracy charges, especially if the wedding venue involves interstate commerce or federal funding. Maya felt something cold and determined settle in her chest. What do you need from me? Everything you've got. Recordings, financial records, communications. And Maya, I need you to keep acting normal until we have enough evidence to proceed. Don't give her any indication that you're building a case. Maya's phone buzzed. Carmen again. Maya, it's been over an hour since my deadline. I'm at the venue now with Preston's mother and the coordinator. They're asking about payment confirmation. Please don't humiliate me in front of these people. Wire the money now. Maya showed the text to Luis, who read it and shook his head. She's creating a paper trail of her own fraud. Every text, every demand, every false claim. It's evidence. Maya typed back, on my way to the bank now. Give me 2 hours to arrange the wire transfer. Luis raised an eyebrow. Buying time. Buying time, Maya confirmed. How long do you need to review the evidence and determine if we have a case? Give me until tonight. Can you stall her that long? Maya thought about Carmen's desperation, about the pressure she was probably feeling from Preston's family, about the elaborate house of cards she'd built around her false identity. She's more invested in this fraud than I am in exposing it, Maya said. She'll wait. She has to wait. Because if this wedding doesn't happen, her entire constructed identity collapses. Luis stood, leaving money for the coffee. Maya, one more thing. If we do this, if we expose everything, it won't just destroy Carmen. It'll probably destroy her relationship with Preston, her social media career, her entire public persona. Maya looked out the diner window at the early morning traffic, at people heading to jobs that paid their bills honestly, at a world where most people didn't have to choose between family loyalty and personal integrity. Good, she said quietly. Maybe it's time Carmen lived in the real world for a while. As Luis walked away, Maya opened her laptop and began typing a new document. Operation Malicious Compliance, a comprehensive guide to exposing systematic family financial fraud. She had 14 hours until Carmen's extended deadline. It was going to be enough. Maya's phone rang at 11:47 a.m., jarring her from the deepest sleep she'd managed in weeks. Carmen's contact photo, a professionally shot image from her latest influencer photo shoot, filled the screen like an accusation. Maya, thank God you're answering. I've been having anxiety attacks all morning. Carmen's voice was breathless, theatrical in the way that had become her signature over the past 2 years. Preston's mother is asking very specific questions about the payment timeline, and I need to give her concrete answers. Maya sat up in bed, fully alert despite having slept only 4 hours. Her laptop was still open beside her, displaying the evidence compilation she'd been working on until dawn. Luis had sent 3 emails overnight, each containing legal precedents for fraud cases involving wealthy families and false identity claims. What kind of specific questions? Maya asked, reaching for the digital recorder she'd borrowed from Luis. Well, she wants to know about the wire transfer details, account numbers, bank routing information, confirmation numbers. Very thorough people, the Ashfords. They like documentation. Maya felt a cold smile cross her face. Carmen had no idea she was creating the exact paper trail that would destroy her. Carmen, I need to see you in person before I transfer that amount of money. We should meet and discuss the details. In person? Maya, there's no time for $75,000, Carmen. I'm not wiring that amount without a face-to-face conversation. It's basic financial security. A pause. Maya could almost hear Carmen's mind racing, weighing her options. Desperation won. Fine. But it has to be soon. Can you meet me at the venue? I'm here with the wedding planner doing final walkthrough, but I can spare an hour. Text me the address. Maya ended the call and immediately opened her communication with Luis. She wants to meet at the venue. Perfect opportunity for documentation and witness statements. How soon can you be in the Hamptons? Luis's response was immediate. Already en route. Spoke with Nassau County Financial Crimes Unit this morning. They're very interested in trust fund fraud involving the Ashford family. Apparently, this isn't their first encounter with people trying to misrepresent themselves for financial gain. Maya felt something electric run through her veins. This wasn't just about Carmen anymore. This was about a pattern of predatory behavior that the authorities were already investigating. She showered quickly, choosing her outfit with the same careful attention she gave to medical procedures. Professional but not ostentatious, trustworthy, the kind of person who looked like she might actually be a successful doctor with real estate investments. The irony wasn't lost on her. Rosecliff Manor sat on 40 acres of manicured Long Island coastline like a monument to generational wealth. Maya's Honda Civic looked absurdly out of place in the circular driveway, surrounded by Mercedes, BMWs, and a Bentley that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary. She'd never seen Carmen's world up close before. The sheer scale of wealth on display was almost surreal. Hedge mazes, marble fountains, a ballroom visible through French doors that could have housed Maya's entire apartment building. Carmen emerged from the main building looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Designer dress, professional makeup, hair styled in effortless waves that had probably taken 2 hours to achieve. She practically glowed with the confidence of someone who belonged in this environment until she saw Maya's expression. "Maya, you look tired. Long shift?" Carmen's voice carried that patronizing concern she'd perfected over the years. "Actually, I've been doing research," Maya said quietly, falling into step beside Carmen as they walked toward a private terrace overlooking the Sound. "Legal research, about trust funds and financial fraud." Carmen's step faltered, almost imperceptibly. "Legal research? Maya, you're being paranoid. This is just family helping family." They reached a wrought iron table surrounded by roses that probably cost more to maintain than Maya's monthly rent. Carmen gestured for Maya to sit, but Maya remained standing. "Carmen, I need you to tell me exactly what you've told Preston's family about me." "I told you last night." "I need specifics, word for word." Carmen's perfectly applied foundation couldn't quite hide the flush creeping up her neck. "Maya, why are you being so weird about this? I told them you're successful. I told them you're generous. I emphasized the positive aspects of our family. Did you tell them I'm a doctor? You work in medicine. Did you tell them I'm a doctor? Yes or no? I may have let them assume. Did you tell them I own real estate investments?" Carmen was quiet for several seconds, her manicured fingers drumming against the iron table. "Maya, these people judge based on success. I needed them to see our family as successful, so you lied. I emphasize the truth. You are smart enough to be a doctor. You could own real estate if you made better financial choices. I just presented the version of our family that we could be." Maya pulled out her phone and opened the voice recording app, setting it on the table between them. Carmen stared at it like it was a venomous snake. "What the hell is that for?" "Documentation," Maya said calmly. "Carmen, I need you to understand something. What you're asking me to do isn't just family assistance. It's conspiracy to commit fraud." "Fraud?" Carmen's voice rose to a near shriek. "Maya, you're being insane. It's wedding money. Families contribute to weddings all the time. Families don't usually base their contributions on elaborate lies about their financial status and professional achievements." Carmen stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the stone terrace. "Maya, I don't know what kind of power trip you're on, but this is my wedding day we're talking about, the most important day of my life. Are you really going to destroy my happiness over some technicality?" Maya looked at her sister, really looked at her. The designer dress, the professional makeup, the perfect hair, everything calculated to create an image of wealth and status, everything designed to hide the working-class girl from the Bronx who'd been ashamed of her family's reality. Carmen, when was the last time you asked about Dad's physical therapy? What does that have to do with when was the last time you contributed to Mom's medical expenses? Maya, I don't see how. When was the last time you did anything for this family besides take money from it? Carmen's composure cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. You think this is about money? Maya, this is about survival. Do you know what it's like to live in their world? Do you know the pressure, the constant judgment, the way they dissect every word you say for signs that you don't belong? So you decided to lie, instead of finding someone who accepts you for who you actually are. Who I actually am isn't good enough, Carmen's voice echoed across the terrace. Who I actually am is a girl from a broken family with no money, no connections, no future beyond whatever job I can find with a high school education. Preston isn't just my fiancé, Maya. He's my escape from everything we came from. Maya felt something break inside her chest. Not heartbreak, recognition. Carmen wasn't just manipulating their family for money. She was erasing them entirely, treating their shared history as something shameful that needed to be hidden or transformed. And what about me, Carmen? What about the sister who's been working 60-hour weeks to support the family you're so ashamed of? You chose that life. You chose to stay trapped in that world of medical debt and night shifts and tiny apartments. I chose to build something better. You chose to build something fake. Carmen grabbed Maya's phone, stopping the recording. Maya, I'm going to say this once. Wire me that money, or our relationship is over. I won't let you sabotage everything I've worked for because you're jealous of my success. Maya looked at her sister for a long moment, memorizing the moment when Carmen finally revealed her true nature. No more manipulation, no more guilt trips disguised as family loyalty. Just a naked ultimatum from someone who'd never seen Maya as anything more than a source of financial support. Okay, Maya said quietly. Carmen blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Okay, I'll wire you the money. Relief flooded Carmen's face. Thank you. God, Maya, I knew you'd come through. You always do. This is going to be such an amazing day. But first, I need you to meet someone. Maya gestured toward the manor's main entrance, where Luis was walking across the circular driveway, his detective badge clearly visible on his belt. Behind him, a woman in an expensive suit was approaching. Someone Maya didn't recognize, but who clearly belonged in this world of wealth and authority. Carmen went pale beneath her foundation. Maya, what did you do? You know that feeling when someone pushes you just a little too far? When they mistake your kindness for weakness one too many times? I can see some of you in the comments are probably feeling that righteous anger right now, watching Carmen dig her own grave with every entitled demand. Hit that like button if you're ready to see someone finally face the consequences of their actions. And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next is going to be absolutely devastating for Carmen's carefully constructed world. Maya Rodriguez? The woman in the suit extended a manicured hand. I'm Sarah Ashford, Preston's mother. I believe we need to have a very serious conversation. Carmen made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. Mrs. Ashford, Maya was just... We were discussing the financial arrangements. Sarah Ashford's smile was arctic. Yes, I'm very interested in those financial arrangements, particularly the ones involving your sister, the successful physician with extensive real estate holdings. Maya met Sarah's eyes, seeing intelligence and ruthless efficiency that reminded her of hospital administrators who could destroy careers with a single phone call. This was a woman who'd built her own fortune before marrying into the Ashford legacy, someone who could recognize deception from a mile away. Mrs. Ashford, Maya said calmly, I think there's been some miscommunication about my professional status and financial situation. I think there's been some deliberate misrepresentation, Sarah replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Detective Morales has been explaining some very interesting legal concepts to me. Identity fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud. Carmen grabbed Maya's arm, her manicured nails digging into skin. Maya, don't do this. Please, these people will destroy me. Maya looked down at Carmen's perfectly manicured hand, nails that probably cost more than Maya's weekly grocery budget, then back at her sister's desperate face. Carmen, she said quietly, you destroyed yourself. I'm just refusing to be complicit anymore. Luis stepped forward, his expression professionally neutral. Ms. Carmen Rodriguez, I'm Detective Luis Morales with the Nassau County Financial Crimes Unit. I'd like to ask you some questions about your recent financial representations to the Ashford family. Carmen's grip on Maya's arm tightened. This is insane. Maya, tell them this is insane. Tell them you're going to give me the money like you promised. Maya gently removed Carmen's hand from her arm. Carmen, I never promised you anything. I said I would consider it, and I have considered it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a cashier's check, made out to herself, for $75. Not 75,000, 75. Here's my contribution to your wedding, Maya said, placing the check on the iron table. It's exactly what I can afford after paying for Mom's insulin, Dad's physical therapy, and my student loan payment this month. Carmen stared at the check like it was written in a foreign language. Maya, what is this? It's malicious compliance, Carmen. You asked for financial support. This is the support I can provide without lying, stealing, or defrauding anyone. Sarah Ashford picked up the check, examining it with the same attention she might give to a museum artifact. Ms. Rodriguez Maya, what exactly is your profession? I'm a night shift emergency room nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in the Bronx. I make $58,000 a year, and I have $80,000 in student loan debt. And your real estate investments? I live in a studio apartment that I rent month to month. Sarah turned to Carmen, who had gone completely silent. Ms. Carmen Rodriguez, it appears your family's financial situation is quite different from what you've represented to us. Carmen's voice was barely a whisper. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Sarah said coldly. Detective Morales, what exactly are the potential charges for this kind of misrepresentation? Luis consulted his notebook. Identity fraud, wire fraud, if any electronic transfers occurred based on false information, and conspiracy to defraud. If the wedding venue contracts involved interstate commerce or federal funding, we could be looking at federal charges. Carmen's legs gave out. She collapsed into the wrought iron chair, her designer dress suddenly looking like a costume on someone playing a role they'd never been qualified for. Maya, she whispered, you've ruined everything. Maya looked at her sister, at the elaborate makeup starting to run with tears, at the designer dress that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, at the engagement ring that Carmen had never revealed the true price of. No, Carmen, Maya said quietly, you ruined everything. I just stopped enabling it. The sound of approaching cars drew their attention. 3 more vehicles were pulling into the circular driveway, a Nassau County Sheriff's car, a black sedan with government plates, and a silver BMW that screamed expensive legal representation. Carmen saw them too. Maya, please, I'm your sister. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Maya thought about all the late nights she'd worked while Carmen posted Instagram stories from expensive restaurants. All the family dinners where Carmen had been praised for her success, while Maya's sacrifices went unnoticed. All the times Carmen had made Maya feel selfish for questioning financial requests that left her eating ramen for weeks. It means I'm the only one who tried to save you from yourself, Maya said, and now it's too late. As the authorities approached the terrace, Maya picked up the $75 check and handed it back to Carmen. Keep it, she said. Buy yourself something nice in commissary. For the first time in 5 years, Maya Rodriguez walked away from her sister without looking back. The trap had been set, sprung, and executed with the precision of a surgical procedure. and Carmen had performed the surgery on herself. Detective Luis Morales approached the terrace with the measured pace of someone who'd arrested white-collar criminals before, people who believed their wealth and connections made them untouchable. Behind him, the federal agent from the black sedan moved with the quiet confidence of someone carrying badges that opened doors the local police couldn't even see. Carmen remained frozen in the wrought-iron chair, her designer dress now wrinkled from her collapse, mascara creating dark tracks down her cheeks. She looked like a broken doll left in an expensive dollhouse. "Ms. Rodriguez," Luis said, his voice carrying official authority, "I'm going to need you to accompany me for questioning regarding potential financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent." "Wait!" Carmen's voice cracked as she shot to her feet. "You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything illegal. This is just a family misunderstanding." Sarah Ashford stepped forward, her expression carved from ice. "Ms. Rodriguez, you represented yourself to my family as someone from a wealthy background. You claimed your sister was a successful physician with real estate investments. You solicited $75,000 based on those false claims. I never asked you for money." Carmen's desperation was escalating into hysteria. "I asked my sister. That's not fraud. That's family business." The federal agent, a woman in her 40s with silver hair and eyes that had seen every con game ever invented, opened a leather portfolio. "Actually, Ms. Rodriguez, the moment you involved a federally insured bank in wire transfer preparations, it became our business. I'm Agent Patricia Wong with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network." Carmen's face went white. "Federal agents? For what? I haven't even received any money." Agent Wong consulted her notes. "Ms. Rodriguez, you've been under investigation for 6 weeks. Your fiancé's family reported suspicious financial claims after a routine background check revealed discrepancies in your stated family assets." Maya felt her eyebrows rise. Carmen hadn't just been caught, she'd been under surveillance. The Ashfords had been investigating her long before Maya decided to expose the truth. "Background check?" Carmen's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah Ashford's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Ms. Rodriguez, did you really think we'd allow someone to marry into our family without thorough vetting, particularly someone who made such extraordinary claims about their background?" Luis pulled out a tablet, showing Carmen a series of financial records. "Ms. Rodriguez, these are your banking statements for the past 2 years. Multiple large deposits from your sister, your parents, and various online sources, but no evidence of the successful career or real estate investments you claimed." Carmen stared at the screen like it contained her death sentence. "How did you get my banking records?" "Court order," Agent Wong said matter-of-factly. "Obtained after your fiancé's family provided evidence of potential fraud. We've been monitoring your financial activity since February." Maya felt a cold realization wash over her. "Carmen, what online sources?" Luis scrolled through the records, pointing to a series of deposits. "Online poker sites, sports betting platforms, daily fantasy football. Ms. Rodriguez, it appears you've been funding a gambling addiction through family manipulation." Carmen's legs gave out again. This time, she didn't just sit. She crumpled, the fight completely drained from her body. "You don't understand. I had to keep up appearances. Preston's world is so expensive, and I couldn't let them see—" "See what?" Sarah Ashford's voice was merciless. "See that you're exactly the kind of person we investigate before allowing into our family?" Agent Wong opened another folder. "Ms. Rodriguez, we've also discovered discrepancies in your educational background. You claimed to have a degree from Columbia University. Columbia has no record of your enrollment." Maya stared at her sister, feeling like she was watching a stranger. "Carmen, you lied about college too. I took some classes online. I was going to finish the degree eventually. Everything I told them was what I planned to become." Luis stepped closer, his expression professional, but not unkind. "Ms. Rodriguez, lying about what you plan to become is still lying. And when you use those lies to solicit money or enter into contracts, like marriage contracts involving trust funds, it becomes fraud. The sound of another car approaching interrupted the interrogation. A silver Mercedes pulled into the driveway, and Maya recognized Preston Ashford III from Carmen's countless Instagram photos. He looked exactly like Central Casting would order for wealthy Connecticut heir. Tall, blonde, carrying himself with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about money. He approached the terrace quickly, his face a mask of confusion and growing anger. "Mother, what's happening here? Carmen called me crying, saying something about police and investigations." Preston stopped dead when he saw the federal agents, the handcuffs on Luis's belt, and Carmen's tear-streaked face. "Carmen?" His voice carried the bewilderment of someone whose world had just shifted on its axis. "What's going on?" Carmen looked up at him with desperate hope. "Preston, thank God you're here. These people are trying to arrest me over some misunderstanding about my family's financial situation. Tell them this is insane. Tell them you know me." Preston looked around the terrace, at the federal agents, at his mother's Arctic expression, at Maya standing quietly in her nurse scrubs next to a woman who was clearly law enforcement. "Carmen," he said slowly, "my mother told me there were questions about your background, about your family's wealth and your sister's profession." Carmen scrambled to her feet, reaching for Preston with desperate hands. "Preston, my family is wonderful. Maya is successful. She's a medical professional. She makes good money. She's been supporting our family for years." "I'm a night shift ER nurse," Maya said quietly. "I make $58,000 a year and live in a studio apartment in the Bronx." Preston's face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, and finally a cold anger that reminded Maya exactly whose son he was. "Carmen," his voice was deadly quiet, "you told me your sister was a physician with real estate investments. She is in medicine. She could be a physician if she applied herself. You told me your family was financially stable, comfortable. We are stable. Maya has savings. My parents own their home. Your parents rent a 2-bedroom apartment," Maya said. "Dad's been on disability for 8 years. Mom's medical expenses eat most of their income." Preston stared at Carmen like he'd never seen her before. "What else did you lie about?" Agent Wong consulted her notes again. "Mr. Ashford, we found discrepancies in Ms. Rodriguez's educational claims, employment history, and family financial status. We've also discovered evidence of gambling addiction funded through family manipulation." "Gambling?" Preston's voice cracked. "Carmen, you told me you don't gamble. You said gambling was morally wrong, that your family had strong values about financial responsibility." Carmen was crying openly now, her carefully applied makeup completely destroyed. "Preston, I can explain everything. I was trying to become someone worthy of you, someone your family would accept. By lying about everything, by becoming better than what I was." Preston looked at his mother, then at the federal agents, then finally at Maya. "Ms. Rodriguez, Maya, how long has this been going on?" Maya considered her answer carefully. She could soften it, minimize Carmen's deception, try to preserve some fragment of the relationship Preston thought he'd been building. Instead, she chose truth. 5 years, Maya said. "Carmen has been systematically lying to everyone, our family, your family, probably you, for at least 5 years. She's cost our family over $100,000 through false emergencies and manufactured crises. She's been funding a gambling addiction while claiming the money was for family medical expenses." Preston's face was pale, but his voice remained steady. "And Today she demanded $75,000 to maintain the fraudulent identity she's created for your benefit. When I refused, she threatened to cut me off as a sister unless I complied with her financial demands." Preston turned to Carmen, his expression unreadable. "Carmen, is this true?" Carmen looked around the terrace, at the federal agents, at Preston's mother's Arctic stare, at Maya's implacable calm, at the life she'd constructed crumbling around her in real time. "Preston," she whispered, "I love you." Preston's response was quiet, devastating and final. "I don't know who you are." Agent Wong stepped forward, breaking the silence. "Ms. Rodriguez, you need to come with us now." We have questions about wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. As Luis moved to escort Carmen from the terrace, she turned to Maya with something that might have been hatred or might have been desperate love. "Maya," she said, her voice broken, "I hope destroying my life was worth it." Maya looked at her sister, at the ruined makeup, the expensive dress, the engagement ring that would probably be returned within hours, and felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. "Carmen," Maya said quietly, "I didn't destroy your life. I just stopped letting you destroy mine." As the authorities led Carmen away, Preston remained on the terrace with his mother and Maya, staring at the wrought iron table where a $75 check still lay like evidence of the truth that had finally surfaced. "Ms. Rodriguez," Preston said finally, "I owe you an apology." Maya shook her head. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Ashford. You're as much a victim of Carmen's deception as anyone." Sarah Ashford stepped forward, studying Maya with calculating eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez, you had evidence of your sister's deception for years. Why expose it now?" Maya considered the question, thinking about all the nights she'd worked double shifts while Carmen posted Instagram stories from expensive restaurants. All the family gatherings where Carmen had been praised for her success while Maya's sacrifices went unnoticed. Because she escalated from family manipulation to actual fraud, Maya said. "As long as she was only hurting our family, I could justify enabling her behavior as misguided loyalty. But when she started defrauding innocent people," she gestured toward Preston and his mother, "you don't deserve to be lied to, regardless of your wealth, and Carmen doesn't deserve to build a life on systematic deception." Sarah Ashford nodded slowly. "Ms. Rodriguez, you're a woman of integrity. That's become increasingly rare." As Maya walked back to her Honda Civic, she could hear Preston on the phone, presumably calling lawyers, wedding vendors, and family members to explain why there would be no Ashford-Rodriguez wedding. She drove away from Rosecliff Manor without looking back, leaving Carmen's carefully constructed world to collapse under the weight of its own lies. Maya Rodriguez had finally learned the difference between family loyalty and self-destruction, and she'd chosen herself. The Nassau County Police Station at 3:30 p.m. was a study in controlled chaos. Maya sat in a sterile interview room that smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee, watching Agent Wong arrange evidence files with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. Across the table, Carmen slumped in an orange jumpsuit, her designer life literally stripped away and replaced with county-issued reality. The transformation was jarring. Without professional makeup, expensive clothes, and carefully styled hair, Carmen looked exactly like what she was, a 28-year-old woman from the Bronx who'd been playing dress-up in a world she couldn't afford. "Ms. Rodriguez," Agent Wong began, opening the first file, "we're going to review the evidence systematically. You have the right to have an attorney present." "I can't afford an attorney," Carmen interrupted, her voice hoarse from crying. "Preston's family has already frozen my access to their accounts. I have about $300 to my name." Maya felt a stab of something that might have been sympathy. Carmen had burned every bridge she'd spent years building in the span of a single afternoon. Luis entered the room, carrying a laptop and several additional file folders. "Sorry for the delay. Had to get clearance from the district attorney's office. This case is bigger than we initially thought." Agent Wong gestured to the chair beside her. "Detective Morales has been coordinating with multiple agencies. Carmen, what you did wasn't just local fraud. It crossed state lines and involved federal banking regulations." Carmen looked up with desperate hope. "But I never actually received any money. Maya never wired the $75,000. "That's called attempted fraud," Luis said, opening his laptop. "The intent to defraud is just as criminal as successful fraud. Plus, we found evidence of other fraudulent activities." He turned the laptop screen toward Carmen. "These are your online gambling records for the past 18 months. $47,000 in losses across 12 different platforms." Carmen stared at the screen like it was showing her own autopsy. "How did you—" "Court order," Agent Wong said matter-of-factly. Carmen, when you applied for credit using false employment information, claiming to be a marketing consultant making 6 figures, you committed bank fraud. Maya leaned forward, studying the records. Carmen, where did $47,000 come from if you don't have money? Carmen's silence stretched for nearly a minute before she finally spoke. Advances from credit cards, personal loans, money I borrowed from family claiming it was for emergencies. Whose money specifically? Luis pressed. Another long pause. Mom and Dad's medical emergency fund, money Maya sent for their bills, cash advances from Preston's credit cards when he wasn't paying attention. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Carmen, how much of Mom and Dad's medical money did you steal? I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back when... How much? Carmen's voice dropped to a whisper. $18,000. The room went silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of phones ringing in the precinct. Maya stared at her sister, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. $18,000 that was supposed to pay for Dad's physical therapy and Mom's insulin, Maya said slowly. Money I worked double shifts to provide while you were posting Instagram photos from Martha's Vineyard. I was going to replace it. Maya, I had a system. I was winning for a while. I almost had enough to cover everything. A system, Agent Wong repeated. Carmen, you had a gambling addiction. There is no system. Luis opened another file. Let's talk about the Preston Ashford situation specifically. Carmen, you told the Ashford family that your sister was a physician with real estate investments worth over $2 million. You provided fake financial statements to support wedding venue contracts. I never provided fake statements. Actually, you did. Agent Wong slid a document across the table. This is a financial disclosure form you submitted to the wedding planner, claiming your family could guarantee payment for venue costs up to $100,000. Carmen stared at the document. Her signature was clearly visible at the bottom. Where did you get this financial information? Luis asked. Carmen's hands were shaking. I made estimates. Maya works in medicine, she makes decent money, she's been supporting the family, I just extrapolated. You fabricated, Agent Wong corrected. Carmen, this document contains specific bank account numbers, investment portfolio values, and property assessments. All false. Maya studied the financial disclosure, recognizing numbers that bore no relationship to reality. Carmen had created an entire fictional financial profile, complete with investment accounts and property holdings that didn't exist. Carmen, Maya said quietly, this isn't exaggeration. This is systematic fraud. Luis opened his laptop again, showing a spreadsheet. We've been tracking your financial misrepresentations for 6 weeks. The Ashford family became suspicious when routine background checks revealed discrepancies. He pointed to the screen. You claimed Maya owned property in downtown Brooklyn worth $2.3 million. Property records show no such ownership. Carmen's face went pale. How could you possibly know about... She stopped mid-sentence, realizing what she'd just admitted. About what, Carmen? Agent Wong leaned forward. How could we know about property that doesn't exist unless you specifically mentioned it? Carmen slumped in her chair, the last of her defenses crumbling. I may have mentioned that Maya had inherited property from our grandmother. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Harold Goldstein, attorney for your grandmother's estate. We need to discuss your inheritance immediately. There are urgent matters requiring your attention. Maya stared at the message, her mind racing. Grandmother's estate had been settled months ago, or so she'd thought. Carmen, Maya said slowly, what exactly did you tell the Ashfords about grandmother's inheritance? Carmen wouldn't meet her eyes. I said she left the family property, valuable property. What property? Grandmother lived in a rent-controlled apartment. I said she owned property in Brooklyn, investment property that had been generating rental income. Agent Wong and Luis exchanged glances. Carmen, Agent Wong said carefully, are you saying you made specific claims about property inheritance? Carmen nodded miserably. Maya's phone rang. Harold Goldstein. Ms. Rodriguez, thank God you called. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. There's been a situation with your grandmother's estate. Someone has been making inquiries about property inheritance, claiming to represent your family's interests. Maya put the phone on speaker, looking at Agent Wong, who nodded permission. Mr. Goldstein, what property inheritance? The Brooklyn property, Ms. Rodriguez. The commercial building your grandmother owned for 30 years. The one that's been generating rental income for your benefit. The interview room went completely silent. Mr. Goldstein, Maya said slowly, I don't know anything about any Brooklyn property. Ms. Rodriguez, your grandmother left explicit instructions that you were to be informed of the inheritance only when you demonstrated the maturity to handle substantial wealth responsibly, or when family circumstances required you to defend yourself against exploitation. Her words exactly. Maya stared at Carmen, who had gone white as paper. Mr. Goldstein, what is this property worth? Current market assessment is $2.8 million, Ms. Rodriguez. It's been generating approximately $4,000 monthly in rental income, which has been accumulating in a trust account pending your notification. Carmen made a sound like a wounded animal. Maya, I didn't know. I thought I was just making up numbers. Agent Wong leaned forward. Carmen, you claimed your sister owned property worth $2.3 million. The actual inheritance is $2.8 million. Luis was typing rapidly on his laptop. Carmen, did you have any knowledge of this actual inheritance when you made claims to the Ashford family? Carmen shook her head frantically. No, I swear, I was just making up numbers that sounded impressive. I had no idea Maya actually... She stopped, staring at Maya with something between awe and horror. Maya, she whispered, you're actually rich. Maya looked around the interview room, at the federal agents, at the evidence of Carmen's systematic deception, at her sister in an orange jumpsuit facing federal fraud charges. No, Carmen, Maya said quietly. I'm actually honest. Agent Wong closed her files with a decisive snap. Ms. Carmen Rodriguez, based on the evidence presented, you're being charged with wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud, and embezzlement of family medical funds. The federal charges carry a potential sentence of 15 to 20 years. Carmen looked at Maya one final time. Maya, please, I know I made mistakes, but I'm your sister. Doesn't that mean anything? Maya stood, gathering her purse and the inheritance information Harold Goldstein had just provided. For the first time in 5 years, she felt like she could breathe freely. Carmen, she said, being my sister meant you had someone who would have helped you honestly if you'd ever asked. Instead, you chose to steal from our parents' medical fund to feed a gambling addiction while manipulating me into working myself to death. Maya walked toward the door, then paused. The property grandmother left me? She included a note saying it was for when Maya needs to defend herself against family who mistake kindness for weakness. Carmen stared at her sister with dawning horror. Maya, grandmother knew? Grandmother knew exactly who you were, Carmen. She just trusted me to figure it out eventually. As Maya left the interview room, she could hear Carmen's sobs echoing down the hallway. Justice, Maya realized, sometimes sounded exactly like someone finally facing the consequences of their own choices. And for the first time in years, Maya Rodriguez was walking toward a future she'd actually earned. The Suffolk County Courthouse at 9 a.m. was a temple to justice, wrapped in marble and mahogany, where the weight of consequence pressed down like gravity itself. Maya sat in the gallery, watching Carmen enter the courtroom in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit that had replaced her designer wardrobe permanently. 3 weeks had passed since the arrest at Rosecliff Manor. 3 weeks of newspaper headlines, social media speculation, and the complete dismantling of Carmen's fabricated life. Her Instagram account, once a carefully curated shrine to fake affluence, had been deleted after screenshots of her arrest went viral. The hashtag #FakeInfluencer had trended for 2 days. Carmen's court-appointed attorney looked like he was handling his third case this week and fighting a losing battle against better-funded opposition. Across the aisle, the prosecution team included 2 federal attorneys, a financial crimes specialist and a representative from the Ashford family's legal team. A show of force that made it clear this wasn't just about one woman's deception. Judge Patricia Brennan called the court to order with the authority of someone who'd spent 20 years separating truth from fiction in cases exactly like this one. The state of New York versus Carmen Rosa Rodriguez. Charges of wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement and conspiracy to defraud. How does the defendant plead? Carmen's voice was barely audible. Not guilty, Your Honor. Maya felt a familiar knot in her stomach. Even now, facing overwhelming evidence, Carmen was still lying. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Chen stood, her movements crisp and professional. Your Honor, the prosecution will demonstrate that the defendant engaged in a systematic campaign of fraud spanning 5 years, targeting both her own family and the prominent Ashford family of Connecticut. She gestured to a presentation screen that lit up with Carmen's Instagram photos, the carefully constructed fantasy life that had hidden the truth. The defendant created a false identity, claimed professional and educational credentials she didn't possess, and solicited money from family members under false pretenses. She stole $18,000 from her parents' medical emergency fund to finance a gambling addiction while manipulating her sister to work excessive hours to support the family. Maya watched the photos cycle through, Carmen at expensive restaurants, wearing designer clothes, posing in locations that screamed wealth and status. Each image was a lie funded by someone else's sacrifice. Furthermore, Ada Chen continued, the defendant defrauded the Ashford family by claiming her sister was a physician with substantial real estate holdings, providing false financial documentation to secure a $75,000 wedding venue contract. Judge Brennan studied the evidence presentation. Counselor, what is the financial scope of the defendant's fraud? Ada Chen consulted her notes. Your Honor, total documented theft from family members exceeds $127,000. Attempted fraud against the Ashford family totaled $75,000. The defendant also provided false information to obtain credit cards and personal loans totaling $63,000. Carmen's attorney stood shakily. Your Honor, my client was struggling with addiction and mental health issues. She made poor choices, but didn't intend criminal fraud. Counselor, Judge Brennan interrupted, intent is established by action. Creating false financial documents, providing fabricated educational credentials, and stealing from family medical funds demonstrates clear criminal intent. Agent Wong approached the witness stand, carrying the files that had become Carmen's downfall. Under oath, she methodically presented the evidence that destroyed any remaining pretense of innocence. The defendant maintained 2 separate identities, Agent Wong testified. Her real identity as Carmen Rodriguez, unemployed high school graduate with gambling addiction and no legitimate income, and her false identity as Carmen Rodriguez Ashford, successful marketing consultant from a wealthy family. She held up printouts of financial records. The defendant used her false identity to obtain credit cards with a combined limit of $47,000. She maxed out these cards gambling online, then solicited money from family members, claiming the funds were needed for family medical emergencies. Carmen's attorney attempted cross-examination. Agent Wong, isn't it possible my client simply exaggerated her family's circumstances out of insecurity rather than criminal intent? Agent Wong's response was devastating. Counselor, creating false financial statements with specific bank account numbers and property assessments isn't exaggeration. It's felony fraud. The courtroom fell silent as Agent Wong presented Carmen's fraudulent financial disclosure, the document that claimed Maya owned property worth $3 million, complete with fabricated account numbers and investment portfolios. The irony, Agent Wong continued, is that the defendant's sister actually did inherit valuable property, worth $2.8 million, but the defendant had no knowledge of this real inheritance when she fabricated her claims. Judge Brennan leaned forward. Agent Wong, are you saying the defendant accidentally approximated the truth while committing fraud? Yes, Your Honor. The defendant created fictional numbers that happened to be close to reality she was unaware of. This demonstrates the systematic nature of her deception. She was skilled enough at fraud to create believable lies. Maya watched Carmen's face crumble as the evidence mounted. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen dollar was being presented with clinical precision. The fantasy life Carmen had constructed was being dissected like a tumor. Luis took the stand next, presenting the recorded conversations Maya had provided. The courtroom listened to Carmen's own voice, admitting to lies, discussing strategies for manipulating family members, and revealing the depth of her deception. Carmen's voice from the recordings filled the courtroom. Maya's too guilty to say no. She thinks she's responsible for the whole family. I just have to frame requests the right way, and she'll give me whatever I need. Judge Brennan's expression hardened. The defendant was manipulating family loyalty to finance criminal activity. The most damaging recording played next. Carmen discussing her plans with someone identified as her gambling sponsor from an online forum. The wedding is my exit strategy. Once I'm married into the Ashford money, I can pay back everything I borrowed and start fresh. Maya will never know how much I actually took from Mom and Dad's medical fund. Preston's trust fund can cover my gambling losses, and I'll be set for life. Carmen's attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. There was no defense against Carmen's own words, revealing premeditated fraud spanning years. Preston Ashford took the stand, his testimony quietly devastating. He described the elaborate lies Carmen had told about her family, her education, her background. His voice remained steady, but Maya could see the pain of discovering that everything he'd believed about the woman he'd planned to marry was fiction. She told me her sister was a successful physician who'd been investing in real estate, Preston testified. She said her family was financially stable and that her values came from growing up in a household that emphasized education and responsibility. Ada Chen showed Preston photos of Maya's actual apartment, her hospital ID badge, her student loan statements. Mr. Ashford, do these images match the descriptions Ms. Rodriguez provided about her family? Preston's voice was quiet but clear. No, everything she told me was a lie. Sarah Ashford's testimony was brief but lethal. She described the background investigation that had revealed Carmen's deception, the discovery of gambling addiction, the realization that Carmen's entire identity had been fabricated. We investigate everyone who enters our family, Sarah testified. It's not about money, it's about character. Ms. Rodriguez demonstrated a complete lack of integrity. Finally, Maya was called to testify. She walked to the witness stand feeling the weight of 5 years' worth of manipulation and sacrifice. Ms. Rodriguez, Ada Chen began, please describe your relationship with the defendant. Maya looked at Carmen, who was staring at the table, unable to meet her eyes. Carmen is my sister, Maya said. For the past 5 years, she's been systematically manipulating our family, stealing money intended for our parents' medical care, and creating an elaborate false identity to attract a wealthy husband. Did you ever suspect the scope of her deception? Maya considered the question carefully. I suspected Carmen was irresponsible with money. I didn't realize she was committing federal crimes. Ada Chen presented Maya's bank records showing years of transfers to Carmen. Ms. Rodriguez, how did these financial requests affect your life? I worked 60 to 80 hours per week to support our family while Carmen spent the money on gambling and maintaining her false lifestyle. I lived in a studio apartment, ate meals from vending machines, and postponed my own medical care to afford the money Carmen claimed our parents needed. Did the defendant ever acknowledge your sacrifices? Maya's voice was steady, matter of fact. Carmen told me I was choosing to live like a pauper when I could be successful if I just tried harder. She blamed me for not having more money to give her. The courtroom was completely silent. Ms. Rodriguez, why did you finally report your sister's fraud? Maya looked at Carmen one final time. Her sister was crying silently, the designer persona completely stripped away to reveal someone Maya barely recognized. Because she escalated from manipulating our family to defrauding innocent people, Maya said. As long as Carmen was only hurting us, I felt obligated to protect her. But when she started lying to the Ashford family, creating false documents, and planning to steal from Preston's trust fund, I realized I wasn't helping my sister anymore. I was enabling a criminal. Carmen's attorney waived cross-examination. There was nothing left to defend. Judge Brennan called for closing arguments. Ada Chen presented the case methodically. Systematic fraud, premeditated deception, theft from vulnerable family members, and conspiracy to defraud a wealthy family. Carmen's attorney made a desperate plea for leniency, citing addiction and mental health issues. But the evidence was overwhelming. Carmen's own recorded words were damning, and her pattern of behavior demonstrated clear criminal intent spanning years. Judge Brennan announced a recess for sentencing deliberation. As the courtroom emptied, Carmen looked at Maya with desperate eyes. "Maya," she whispered, as the bailiff approached with handcuffs, "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." Maya stood, gathering her purse and the inheritance documents that had changed everything. Carmen's apology was too little, too late, and probably not even genuine. "Carmen," Maya said quietly, "you meant every bit of it. You just never expected to face consequences." As the bailiff led Carmen away, Maya walked out of the courthouse into bright September sunshine. For the first time in 5 years, she felt like she could breathe freely. Justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about truth finally surfacing after being buried under years of lies. And Maya Rodriguez was finally free to live honestly. The Manhattan office of Goldstein, Weiss & Associates occupied the 32nd floor of a building that smelled like expensive leather and old money. Maya sat across from Harold Goldstein's mahogany desk, still wearing her hospital scrubs from the night shift, feeling like an imposter in a world she'd never imagined belonging to. "Ms. Rodriguez," Harold said, spreading documents across his desk with the reverence of someone handling sacred texts. "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman. She purchased this Brooklyn property in 1987 for $68,000, using money she'd saved working double shifts as a seamstress." Maya studied the property photos. A 4-story commercial building in Dumbo that housed an artisanal coffee roastery, a boutique design firm, and 2 luxury apartments. The neighborhood had transformed from industrial wasteland to one of Brooklyn's most desirable areas. She never mentioned owning property, Maya said, running her fingers over the deed that bore her grandmother's signature. "Isabella Rodriguez was very private about her investments," Harold explained. "She reinvested every penny of rental income back into property improvements and additional real estate purchases. By the time she passed, she owned 3 buildings and had accumulated over $400,000 in liquid assets." Maya stared at the numbers, her mind struggling to process the reality. While she'd been working 80-hour weeks and eating ramen noodles, she'd been wealthy without knowing it. "Mr. Goldstein, why didn't she tell me?" Harold removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly, a gesture Maya recognized as the prelude to difficult news. "Ms. Rodriguez, your grandmother was very concerned about your sister's influence on the family. She left specific instructions that you were only to be informed of your inheritance when you demonstrated the wisdom to defend yourself against family exploitation." Her exact words. Maya felt a chill run through her. "Grandmother knew about Carmen? Your grandmother was 93 years old and sharp as a surgical blade," Harold said. "She'd observed Carmen's behavior for years. The constant financial requests, the lifestyle inconsistencies, the way Carmen treated you like a personal ATM." He handed Maya a sealed envelope marked, "For Maya, when she's ready." Maya opened it with trembling hands. Her grandmother's spidery handwriting filled 3 pages. Mi querida Maya, if you are reading this, it means you have finally learned to value yourself as much as you value others. I have watched Carmen manipulate our family for years, turning your generosity into her weapon against you. I did not tell you about the property because I knew Carmen would find ways to claim it belonged to the family. She would have convinced you to sell it, to split the money, to sacrifice your future for her immediate gratification. The money you have been sending to help with medical expenses, I never needed it, mija. I have been putting every dollar into a savings account for your future. Your father's insurance covers his therapy. Medicare handles most of my costs. Carmen convinced you we were desperate because she needed you to believe sacrifice was necessary. You have given 5 years of your life working yourself to exhaustion based on lies. Carmen has been stealing from everyone, even from the medical money you thought was keeping us alive. I am leaving you this inheritance, not just as money, but as permission to live for yourself. Stop enabling Carmen's destruction. Stop sacrificing yourself for people who mistake your kindness for weakness. Build a life worthy of your goodness, Maya. You have earned the right to be selfish. Te amo, Abuela Maya read the letter twice, tears blurring her vision. Her grandmother had known everything: Carmen's lies, the family manipulation, the systematic theft. She'd been protecting Maya the only way she could, by giving her the financial independence to escape. Mr. Goldstein, Maya said, her voice steady despite the emotional earthquake, what are my options regarding the property and accounts? Harold consulted his legal notes. The properties are generating approximately $12,000 monthly in rental income. The liquid assets total $467,000. You could continue collecting rent and live comfortably, or you could sell and invest differently. Maya thought about her cramped studio apartment, her student loans, the medical debt she'd accumulated postponing her own healthcare to afford Carmen's fictional emergencies. I want to sell one property and use the funds to pay off my student loans and medical debt. The remaining properties will provide rental income while I decide what to do next. Excellent choice. Ms. Rodriguez, may I ask what you're planning regarding your career? Maya considered the question. For 5 years, she'd been trapped in a cycle of working excessive hours to support a family that didn't need her sacrifice. Now, with financial independence, she could make choices based on what she actually wanted. I think I'd like to go back to school, Maya said. Maybe pursue the medical degree Carmen pretended I already had. Harold smiled. Your grandmother would be proud. The courthouse steps at 2 p.m. were crowded with reporters and photographers waiting for Carmen's sentencing hearing. Maya had debated attending. Part of her wanted to move forward without looking back, but she needed to see this chapter close definitively. Inside, Judge Brennan reviewed the case files with the thoroughness of someone who understood that justice required both punishment and deterrence. Ms. Carmen Rodriguez, Judge Brennan said, you have been found guilty on all counts: wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and conspiracy to defraud. The court has considered your attorney's plea for leniency, but the evidence demonstrates premeditated criminal behavior spanning 5 years. Carmen stood in her orange jumpsuit, looking smaller and more fragile than Maya remembered. The confident influencer persona had been completely stripped away, revealing someone who'd built her entire adult identity on lies. The defendant systematically manipulated family relationships to fund criminal activity, Judge Brennan continued. She stole $18,000 from her parents' medical fund, defrauded her sister of over $100,000, and attempted to embezzle $75,000 from the Ashford family through false pretenses. Ada Chen stood for the prosecution's final statement. Your Honor, the defendant's crimes weren't crimes of desperation. They were crimes of entitlement. She believed her desires justified stealing from vulnerable family members and deceiving innocent people. Carmen's attorney made one last plea. Your Honor, my client is young and can be rehabilitated. Prison would destroy any chance for her to make amends to her family. Judge Brennan's response was swift and decisive. Counselor, the defendant destroyed her family relationships through 5 years of systematic theft and manipulation. The court's responsibility is justice, not family reconciliation. Maya watched Carmen's face as Judge Brennan delivered the sentence. Carmen Rosa Rodriguez, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, totaling $212,000. Carmen collapsed into her chair, the reality of 8 years in prison hitting her like a physical blow. Maya felt a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice served, but at the cost of completely destroying her sister's life. As the bailiffs approached to escort Carmen away, she looked at Maya one final time. "Maya," Carmen called out, her voice breaking, "will you visit me?" Maya stood, gathering her purse and the legal documents that had changed everything. She looked at her sister, at the woman who'd stolen years of Maya's life through manipulation and lies, who'd chosen criminal fraud over honest work, who'd betrayed every person who'd ever trusted her. "Carmen," Maya said quietly, "I'll think about it." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't absolute rejection either. It was the truth. Maya would think about it, weigh her options, and make decisions based on her own needs, rather than family obligation. As Carmen was led away in handcuffs, Maya walked out of the courthouse into brilliant October sunshine. The media tried to intercept her, but she had nothing to say to reporters. This wasn't a story anymore. It was her life, finally her own. That evening, Maya stood in her grandmother's Brooklyn property, looking out at the Manhattan skyline across the East River. The artisanal coffee roastery below filled the building with the rich scent of freshly roasted beans. The design firm's minimalist showroom glowed with warm lighting. The luxury apartments commanded rents that exceeded Maya's annual salary. Her grandmother had built all of this through honest work, careful saving, and smart investments. No lies, no manipulation, no theft from family members, just decades of patient effort that had created generational wealth. Luis joined her on the rooftop terrace, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the roastery downstairs. "Maya," he said, handing her a cup, "I wanted to update you on the investigation. We found evidence that Carmen was part of a larger online gambling ring that targeted family members for financing. She wasn't just a victim of addiction, she was recruiting other people to manipulate their families." Maya stared at him. "She was teaching other people to do what she did to us. We found dozens of messages where Carmen provided advice on emotional manipulation techniques, family guilt strategies, and methods for extracting money without triggering suspicion. She was essentially running a consulting business for family financial fraud." Maya felt her last traces of sympathy for Carmen evaporate. This wasn't addiction or mental illness. This was calculated predatory behavior that Carmen had systematized and monetized. "Luis, how many families did she help destroy?" "We're still investigating, but preliminary evidence suggests at least 15 other families were targeted using Carmen's methods. The FBI is expanding the investigation to include conspiracy charges for running a criminal enterprise." Maya sat down heavily on a rooftop bench, processing the scope of Carmen's criminal activity. Her sister hadn't just been lying and stealing, she'd been teaching others to commit the same crimes against their own families. "Maya," Luis said gently, "you did the right thing. Carmen wasn't going to stop on her own. She was escalating, expanding, turning family manipulation into a business model." Maya looked out at the city lights, thinking about all the families Carmen had helped destroy through her systematic approach to financial fraud. The guilt she'd felt about exposing her sister finally dissolved completely. "Luis," she said, "I want to do something with this inheritance, something that helps people who've been victims of family financial abuse." Luis smiled. "Your grandmother would be proud." Maya stood, looking out at the skyline that now belonged to her in a small way. She owned a piece of this city, this future, this possibility for something better. Carmen was beginning 8 years in federal prison, facing additional charges for running a criminal conspiracy. Her Instagram perfect life had been revealed as an elaborate fraud, funded by other people's sacrifices. Maya Rodriguez was beginning the first day of a life she'd actually earned. The cleanup was complete. Justice had been served. And for the first time in years, Maya could sleep peacefully knowing that her kindness was no longer being weaponized against her own future. The property deed in her name felt like permission to finally live for herself. She was ready. 2 years later, Maya stood in the lobby of the Rodriguez Family Financial Advocacy Center, watching the morning sun stream through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the East River. The converted space on the ground floor of her grandmother's building had become something she'd never imagined possible, a sanctuary for people escaping the kind of family financial abuse she'd endured for years. The walls displayed framed photographs of families who'd been helped by the center, elderly parents who'd discovered their children were stealing their social security checks, siblings who'd learned to set boundaries with manipulative relatives, young adults who'd escaped toxic family financial dynamics. Each photo represented someone who'd learned the difference between family loyalty and financial exploitation. Maya, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the center's clinical director, approached with a case file. "We have a new client consultation in 10 minutes. 26-year-old teacher whose sister has been manipulating her into paying for a lifestyle the sister can't afford. Sound familiar?" Maya smiled grimly. "They always sound familiar. What's the financial scope?" $43,000 over 2 years. The sister claims it's for family emergencies, but the client discovered the money's being spent on luxury vacations and designer clothes. Maya nodded, reviewing the intake notes. After Carmen's conviction, she'd realized that their family's situation wasn't unique. Thousands of people were being systematically manipulated by relatives who'd weaponized guilt, obligation, and love to fund their own irresponsibility. The center had helped over 200 families in its first 18 months of operation. "Dr. Walsh, have we heard anything from the federal investigation into Carmen's consulting network?" "Actually, yes." Dr. Walsh handed Maya a legal document. "The FBI wrapped up the case last month. 47 people were arrested in connection with the family financial fraud network your sister was running. They estimate the total theft exceeded $3 million across 68 families." Maya stared at the numbers, still processing the scope of Carmen's criminal enterprise. Her sister hadn't just been a victim of gambling addiction. She'd been the architect of a systematic program that taught people how to exploit their own families. "Any word on additional charges for Carmen?" She pled guilty to racketeering charges in exchange for cooperation with the ongoing investigation. They added 4 years to her sentence. She won't be eligible for parole for 10 years. Maya felt a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Carmen was facing the consequences of her choices, but 10 years in federal prison would fundamentally alter the trajectory of her life. There would be no Instagram comeback, no wealthy husband, no return to the fantasy existence she'd constructed. The front desk chimed with the arrival of their morning client. Maya straightened her blazer, designer now, but purchased honestly with money she'd actually earned, and prepared to meet another person whose family had confused love with exploitation. The consultation room was designed to feel more like a living room than a clinical space. Comfortable chairs, warm lighting, and carefully chosen artwork created an atmosphere where people could discuss painful family dynamics without feeling judged or pathologized. Sarah Martinez, 26, sat across from Maya, clutching a folder filled with bank statements and text messages. Her story was heartbreakingly familiar. Successful teacher working extra jobs to support a sister who claimed to be struggling financially while posting social media photos from expensive restaurants and weekend getaways. "Ms. Martinez," Maya said gently, "tell me about the last time your sister asked for money." Sarah's voice was shaky. "Last week, She said she needed $800 for car repairs, but then I saw her Instagram stories from a spa weekend in the Hamptons. When I asked about it, she said a friend paid for the trip as a birthday gift. Maya made notes, recognizing the patterns she'd learned to identify through painful experience. Sarah, how long has your sister been requesting financial help? About 3 years. It started small, $50 here and there for gas money or groceries. But it's escalated to hundreds of dollars every few weeks. Maya opened her tablet, showing Sarah a chart. We've found that family financial manipulation typically follows a predictable pattern. It starts with small requests that seem reasonable. As the victim becomes accustomed to providing money, the requests increase in frequency and amount. That's exactly what happened, Sarah said, studying the chart. But she's my sister. Families are supposed to help each other, right? Maya felt an echo of her own rationalizations from years past. Sarah, there's a difference between helping family members during genuine emergencies and being systematically exploited by someone who's using your love against you. She handed Sarah a worksheet titled Financial Manipulation Indicators. As Sarah read through the list, false urgency, guilt trips, lifestyle inconsistencies, escalating demands, her face grew pale. This describes my sister perfectly, Sarah whispered. Am I being abused? Financial abuse is real, Sarah, and it's often perpetrated by people we love, which makes it harder to recognize and stop. Maya spent the next hour teaching Sarah the same lessons she'd learned through painful experience. How to set boundaries, how to verify financial emergencies, how to distinguish between genuine need and manufactured crisis. Most importantly, how to value herself enough to say no. Sarah, Maya said as the consultation concluded, you deserve to keep the money you earn. Your sister's financial problems are not your responsibility to solve. Sarah left with a resource packet and a follow-up appointment scheduled. Maya watched her walk toward the subway, recognizing the mixture of fear and relief that came with finally understanding that family loyalty didn't require financial servitude. That afternoon, Maya sat in her office, formerly her grandmother's bedroom, reviewing the center's quarterly impact report. 234 families served. Over $1.8 million in predatory financial requests identified and stopped. 47 people referred to law enforcement for financial fraud investigation. Her phone rang. Carmen. Maya stared at the caller ID for several seconds before answering. Carmen was allowed one phone call per week from federal prison, and she'd been calling Maya every Wednesday for 6 months. Most of the time, Maya let it go to voicemail. Today, she picked up. Hello, Carmen. Maya, thank God you answered. I was starting to think you'd blocked my number. Carmen's voice sounded different, smaller, more fragile. Prison had stripped away the confident manipulation tactics she'd perfected over years. Carmen, what do you want? I want to apologize. Really apologize, not the fake apologies I used to give when I needed something from you. Maya was quiet, waiting. Maya, I've been in therapy here. Court-ordered, but it's helping. I'm starting to understand what I did to you, to our family, to all those other families. Carmen, you ran a criminal enterprise that taught people how to exploit their own relatives. 47 people were arrested because of the network you created. I know. Carmen's voice was barely a whisper. Maya, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make amends somehow. Is there anything I can do from here? Maya considered the question. Carmen would be in prison for 10 years. There was no financial restitution she could pay, no direct service she could provide to victims. Carmen, there is something you could do. Anything. Help us understand how the manipulation worked. The center I founded helps people who've been victimized by family financial abuse. If you're willing to be interviewed about your techniques, your psychology, the way you rationalize the manipulation, it could help us protect other people. Carmen was quiet for nearly a minute. Maya, that would mean admitting everything, on record, explaining exactly how I manipulated you and everyone else. Yes, and you'd use that to help other people avoid becoming victims like you were. Yes. Another long pause. Maya, would that help you forgive me? Maya looked out her office window at the East River, at the city skyline her grandmother had given her, at the life she'd built from the ashes of Carmen's betrayal. Carmen, I don't know if I'll ever forgive you completely, but I might be able to respect you if you choose to help people instead of hurt them. Okay, Carmen said quietly. Yes, I'll do the interviews. I'll explain everything. Carmen, there's one condition. You have to tell the absolute truth. No minimizing, no excusing, no manipulation. If I detect any dishonesty, the interviews stop immediately. I understand. Maya, I love you. I know I have no right to say that anymore, but it's true. Maya felt tears she hadn't expected. Carmen, if you'd loved me, you wouldn't have spent 5 years stealing my life to fund your lies. I know. I'm sorry. Maya ended the call and sat in silence for several minutes. Carmen's cooperation could help the center develop better resources for victims of family financial abuse. But Maya wasn't doing this for Carmen. She was doing it for all the Sarah Martinezes who needed to understand that family love shouldn't require financial sacrifice. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium of a Senate subcommittee hearing on family financial abuse, presenting the center's research to lawmakers considering federal legislation to protect victims of domestic financial fraud. Senators, Maya said, consulting her notes, family financial abuse affects an estimated 2.6 million Americans annually. Unlike other forms of domestic abuse, financial manipulation often goes unrecognized because victims are manipulated into believing their sacrifice is an expression of love. Senator Patricia Williams leaned forward. Ms. Rodriguez, what distinguishes normal family financial assistance from abuse? Maya clicked to her next slide, showing a comparison chart developed from Carmen's prison interviews. Normal family assistance involves genuine emergencies, temporary support, and mutual respect. Financial abuse involves systematic manipulation, false emergencies, and the weaponization of family loyalty. And your personal experience with this issue? Maya had debated how much to reveal about Carmen's crimes, but decided that policy required personal truth. Senator Williams, my sister systematically manipulated our family for 5 years, stealing over $200,000 to fund gambling addiction and a fraudulent lifestyle. She taught dozens of other people to commit similar crimes against their own families. How was she eventually caught? Maya smiled grimly. She made the mistake of trying to defraud people with the resources to investigate her claims. Family members often can't afford professional help to verify financial emergencies. But when Carmen tried to scam a wealthy family with investigative resources, her lies were exposed quickly. Senator Williams consulted her notes. Ms. Rodriguez, what federal protections do you recommend for family financial abuse victims? First, education resources to help people recognize manipulation tactics. Second, legal frameworks that treat family financial fraud as seriously as other forms of domestic abuse. Third, victim services specifically designed for people whose abusers are family members. Maya spent the next hour presenting the center's research, Carmen's recorded confessions, and policy recommendations based on 2 years of working with victims. The hearing concluded with bipartisan support for federal legislation addressing family financial abuse. As Maya left the Capitol building, her phone buzzed with a text from Luis. Saw the hearing coverage on C-SPAN. Your grandmother would be proud. Maya smiled, thinking about the woman who'd protected her inheritance until Maya was strong enough to protect herself. The property deed still hung framed in her office, not just as legal documentation, but as a reminder that someone had believed Maya deserved better than a life of systematic exploitation. That evening, Maya sat on the rooftop terrace of her grandmother's building, looking out at the Manhattan skyline she'd grown to love. The coffee roastery below had closed for the day, leaving the building quiet except for the distant sound of traffic and the East River lapping against the shore. Her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Maya Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Jennifer Chen from the District Attorney's Office. I wanted to update you on your sister's case. Maya felt her stomach tighten. Is everything all right? Actually, yes. Carmen's cooperation with our ongoing investigation has been extraordinary. Her interviews have helped us identify and prosecute an additional 37 people involved in family financial fraud networks across 6 states. Maya was quiet, processing the information. Ms. Rodriguez, I know this doesn't undo what your sister did to you and your family, but her willingness to expose the entire network has probably prevented hundreds of other families from being victimized. Ada Chen, does this affect Carmen's sentence? No, she's still serving the full 10 years, but the parole board will likely consider her cooperation when she becomes eligible. And Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted you to know that your sister specifically requested that any sentence reduction be contingent on her continuing to work with family financial abuse prevention programs. The night after Ada Chen hung up, Maya sat in silence, watching the city lights reflect off the river. Carmen was still in federal prison, still facing the consequences of years of criminal behavior. But she was also choosing to help protect other people from becoming victims of the same crime she'd perfected. It wasn't redemption. Carmen would never undo the damage she'd caused. But it was the beginning of accountability, the first honest thing Carmen had done in years. Maya's phone buzzed with a voice message from Carmen's weekly call. She listened to it immediately. Maya, I know you're probably busy and might not want to hear from me. But I wanted you to know that I testified today in another fraud case. A man who was using my techniques to steal from his elderly mother. Because of the evidence I provided, they were able to stop him and recover the money. Carmen's voice was different, steadier, more honest. I can't undo what I did to you. But maybe I can prevent other people from going through what you went through. It doesn't make me a good person, Maya, but maybe it makes me a person who's finally telling the truth. Maya saved the message and opened her laptop, checking the center's website statistics. In the past month, they'd helped 63 families recognize and escape financial manipulation. The educational materials based on Carmen's interviews had been downloaded over 12,000 times. Carmen's crimes had destroyed lives, but her cooperation was now protecting people. Maya looked out at the city one final time before heading inside. Tomorrow she would meet with 3 new clients who discovered that family love shouldn't require financial servitude. She would teach them the lessons she'd learned through painful experience, that kindness without boundaries becomes enabling, that family loyalty shouldn't require personal destruction, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be victimized. Carmen Rodriguez was serving 10 years in federal prison for systematically defrauding her own family and teaching others to commit similar crimes. Maya Rodriguez was living the life her grandmother had given her permission to build, honest, independent, and finally her own. The verdict was complete. Truth had prevailed over manipulation. Justice had prevailed over entitlement, and Maya Rodriguez had learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim anymore. She was free. Epilogue. 5 years after Carmen's conviction, Maya received a letter postmarked from the Federal Correctional Institution where Carmen was serving her sentence. Maya, I know I have no right to contact you directly, but the warden approved this letter because it relates to the victim services work we've been doing here. I wanted you to know that the Family Financial Abuse Prevention Program we developed has been implemented in 43 federal prisons. Over 800 inmates have participated in the program, and we've prevented an estimated $2.4 million in family fraud through early intervention. I also wanted you to know that I finally understand what love actually means. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't sacrifice other people for personal gain. I loved the idea of you, the sister who would always be there when I needed something. I didn't love you, Maya. I used you. You taught me what real love looks like by finally refusing to enable my destruction. I'll be eligible for parole in 5 years. I don't expect forgiveness, reconciliation, or relationship. But I want you to know that every day I'm in here, I'm working to prevent other people from becoming victims of the crimes I perfected. It's the only honest work I've ever done." Carmen Maya read the letter twice, then filed it with the other documentation from Carmen's case. It wasn't an ending. It was just another piece of evidence that justice sometimes looks like people finally accepting responsibility for their choices. The Rodriguez Family Financial Advocacy Center had helped over 1,000 families escape financial manipulation. Maya had completed her medical degree and now worked part-time as an emergency physician while running the center. She was 37 years old, financially independent, and finally living a life she'd chosen rather than a life imposed by other people's expectations. Carmen's Instagram account had been permanently deleted. The fantasy life she'd constructed no longer existed anywhere except in federal court records that documented the systematic destruction of family trust. Maya Rodriguez had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the most radical act is simply choosing yourself. And she'd chosen well. Author's note: if you've recognized patterns from your own life in this story, know that family financial abuse is real, serious, and more common than most people realize. You deserve to keep the money you earn. You deserve relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation. And you deserve to build a life that serves your own dreams rather than funding someone else's lies. Thank you for following Maya's journey from victim to victor. Sometimes justice takes time, but truth has a way of surfacing eventually. Subscribe for more stories about people who finally chose themselves over toxic family dynamics. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply living well.